What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the Neighborhood Podcast. One of the hosts of the podcast. My name is Kyle Dabro, and in today's segment, we're going to go over the Yankee season coming to a pretty brutal end after the Yankees suffered a four-game series sweep against the Houston Astros in the ALCS. There was a lot of potential for the Yankees this season. They got off to a really good start, and then really once the All-Star break rolled around, the Yankees were essentially a 500 team until the end of the season. Granted, they were able to beat the Guardians to advance to the ALCS, but it is pretty safe to say that the Yankees had an abysmal showing in the ALCS when they were dispatched from the playoffs in four games against the Houston Astros, who did advance to the World Series. So, Kevin, to kick this one to you, I know the Yankees are your team, and I know you're pretty disappointed about the result with the Yankees this season. How would you assess the Yankees this season, and where do you see them going forward from here?
Well, Kyle, as a diehard, lifelong Yankee fan, a Bronx native, going to games growing up, it being 15, 20 minutes from wherever it is I grew up because I moved a couple times. The Yankees infuriate me. I say it every year, sometimes jokingly, sometimes meaning it. I just prepare for them to break my heart no matter how good the season starts, no matter what role we get on. It just always seems to come to an end over the last 5 or 6 years. Somewhere in the postseason, we fall apart. And this year was no exception. We started the season off as hot as you possibly can. Going into the All-Star break, we had a little bit of a lull, but we thought that was just between tired, people just resting starters, whatever have you. But that first initial half of this season was as good as you can get, probably all-time high in terms of win percentage and win record before the All-Star break in Yankees history. And then we follow that up with going basically, if I'm not mistaken, I think to end the season, we went 46 and 48, including the playoffs, which is under 500. That is absolutely unacceptable. And I think that in large part, we either got too comfortable, we fell into a slump at the worst possible time, and our offense was never able to truly recover outside of course, Aaron Judge, who also kind of went on his own slump. And then you go into the postseason, and in the first round, you play the Guardians, and you bat .182. That is the lowest, if not second lowest, Yankees batting average to win a series in Yankees history. Absolutely ridiculous. Then you go and you face the Astros, who are the best team in the American League. And some would argue, despite the record, they could be the best team in baseball, aside from the Dodgers. And we just completely sold. I mean, Aaron Judge batted under .100. So for those of you that are unaware, baseball goes in the averages are from 1,000 and under. So it's 1.000 and then anything underneath that. So a normal batting average for the MLB is like 240, 245, something like that. So for those of you that don't know, Aaron Judge was literally in this series batting at one point a .067. Ridiculous. Jose Trevino batting zero. I mean, the list goes on and on and on in terms of failure in a multitude of different positions, a multitude of facets within execution, batting average. The Yankees just sucked. Now this is when I start to get frustrated because I'm looking at this and saying the players did not perform. Let's not get it twisted. Let's not forget what we're talking about here. No matter what manager you have, no matter what GM, no matter what owner, the players have to go out and execute. There are no excuses, and that is across all sports. And when head coaches roll because players aren't performing, I usually feel bad. In this case, I don't. Aaron Boone is arguably the worst manager in all of baseball, and I will not sugarcoat it any less than that. He is horrible at situational awareness. He is horrible at bullpen substitutions. He is horrible at pinch hitting substitutions. You know why? Because he is too focused on the analytics. If a batter is coming to the plate and because he bats a certain batting average in history against right-handed pitchers, if our right-handed pitcher at that time hypothetically is Garrett Cole, because he bats really good against right-handed hitters third time in the lineup, he's going to pull Garrett Cole and put in a lefty that is absolutely atrocious. But because the numbers say it, he's going to go and do that. And when that happens, that is just a habitual reoccurrence throughout the entire season, throughout his entire tenure as a manager for the Yankees. He has tried to overanalyze and overcomplicate a lot of situations he does not need to. Aside from that, now you move it into the GM perspective. Brian Cashman has made horrible decisions with this roster over the course of the last two seasons. Last year, he gets rid of Gary Sanchez. Coming into this year, he gets rid of Gary Sanchez and Gio Urshela. I never liked Gary Sanchez. I was happy with the move, but when I found out in that trade with Minnesota, we gave up Gio Urshela. Who did we obtain from that trade? We go and we get Josh Donaldson. Last I checked, Josh Donaldson's 35 years old. Last time I checked, Josh Donaldson ended this season with 12 errors. Do you know how many errors Gio Urshela ended with? 6. Do you know how many errors IKF, another person that we acquired this offseason, ended with at playing 2 positions? 16 errors. Do you know that Gio Urshela plays third base, shortstop, second base, first base, pretty much an all-around utility player within the infield, but we don't need to worry about first base anymore because of Rizzo. So he would have just locked down third or short. You know what he was batting average this year? 285. Donaldson, do you know what his batting average was? 222. Do you know what his batting average against the Astros was? .077. I'm not understanding. Stop me if I'm wrong, Kyle, because the numbers, the Mr. Analytical wasn't able to see that it wasn't working out for the old man at third base. Do you know how many strikeouts Josh Donaldson had this season? 148. Do you know how many Gio had? 96. Stop me when it gets to a point where the analytics start to make fucking sense. At no point did the Yankees make any moves this season during the trade deadline or in the offseason prior to the season starting. Did it help us get any better aside from the Harrison Bader for Jordan Montgomery trade, where Harrison Bader single-handedly carried this damn atrocious lineup with over 435 in terms of batting average. He was batting 435 against the Astros and well over 300 in the playoffs. Our only batter that was batting over 300 this entire postseason. So Harrison Bader, I applaud you. Just like every other Yankee fan on earth, we love you and we're grateful. Even though you came and were unable to play right away, when you did jump into the lineup, you were immediately effective and a spark plug. And it's also a native. He's from Bronxville. For those of you that don't know. The Montez trade from Oakland didn't go well. The Trevino trade that also was acquired within Montez, another bullpen reliever, that didn't go well. I mean, we lost Britton. Aroldis Chapman didn't want to play because he wasn't guaranteed a spot on the ALDS roster, so he was designated for assignment. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on with terrible decisions and terrible roster moves to where you have to look at this and say, how are these two people not responsible? How is Aaron Boone still employed? How is Brian Cashman still employed? And you know what Kyle and I read today? The both of them are probably coming back next season. And I can promise you, every single true, honest, and loyal Yankee fan is not happy. Because you know what? Aside from 2017, where we overachieved and were robbed of a World Series championship, in my personal opinion, which, by the way, we can't use that argument anymore because we've lost to the Astros, I think, another 3 times since then in terms of total postseason appearances. I don't know how we go from ALCS to whatever the next couple series was, because again, I'm not trying to look at every single statistic here. We were make the playoffs and lose, make the playoffs and lose, ALCS lose. Like every single time it came to the postseason, we could never get over the hump. Aaron Judge has become A-Rod prior to 2009 to where he cannot produce in the playoffs, and he completely becomes a different shell of himself. That's a whole nother conversation, by the way, because we also read a report today saying that the San Francisco Giants will not be outbid in terms of going after Aaron Judge. And after this playoff performance, I don't know if I'm giving Judge the number that he wants. Yeah, he broke the AL home run record this year, but it matters in the playoffs. It matters in October. You didn't perform in October. Why am I going to pay you and give you everything that you had asked for? But let's pivot into the next subject, which is an older subject, but we're talking about money now. A couple years ago, we had an opportunity to get Bryce Harper. We didn't get Bryce Harper. Do you know how we know why we didn't get Bryce Harper? Because we didn't want to pay him. Do you know what Bryce Harper is making this season as he's going into his first World Series with the Philadelphia Phillies? Which congratulations to you, by the way, Bryce, and to the Phillies. He's making $27 million. Do you know how much fucking money Josh Donaldson's making this year at 35 years old? Over the next 2 seasons, $51 million. What's the difference between Bryce Hart? Oh, wait a minute. I don't know. One's a freaking giant. One can play left field. One was willing to take a pay cut. One was willing to change positions. Oh, and I don't know. He's a 2-time MVP. Josh Donaldson is 35 years old. He is not what he once was in Toronto. He is not what he was in Atlanta. He's not what he was in Cleveland. Whatever reference you want to utilize, we get an old man who's making basically what Bryce Harper is making, and we're not in the World Series. So first, you don't want to spend money, but you're willing to give money to the wrong people. Makes perfect sense. You lowball Judge for $213 in terms of a contract. You know damn well he's worth more than that. Now, if he walks, that's a big contribution because Brian Cashman disrespected him with that offer. Now, I know Lamar Jackson's going through a similar offer or similar situation where they bet on themselves to get a bigger contract at the end of the year. And Aaron Judge, for sure, is going to earn 100% more than $213 million. There's no reason why he shouldn't have been signed prior. The fact that you disrespected him with that number is beyond me. So what I'm getting at is Aaron Boone, Brian Cashman are at the forefront here alongside the players for the failure of a season that we had. But there is a number of reasons as to why we haven't been successful over the past 5 and 6 years since that original ALCS appearance. We're not getting better. We're getting worse. We may have good, successful regular seasons. We're not doing anything in the postseason meaningful. We're not even getting to the World Series to say, you know what, at least we got there. We were this close. No, we're losing in the ALCS, embarrassingly getting swept at home. We're losing in the divisional round. We're losing to Boston in the wild card game last year with Garrett Cole, the guy we paid over $300 million for. This team is an absolute joke. And until things change at the top, this will never cease. And the reason this front office doesn't want to change it is because Aaron Boone is a puppet and Brian Cashman gets to do whatever he wants. God rest George Steinbrenner's hand. God rest George Steinbrenner's soul. He is turning in his grave because the Yankees are not the empire that we once were. We are not even a shell of what we once were. We're an embarrassment. And the fact that the Mets are even in a discussion at this moment to somewhat be a good team in baseball should describe enough to you right there. We suck and we are not good. And until we change things, especially in that front office area, we're going to continue to suck. And if Aaron Judge leaves, I can only blame two people here. The way Boone manages and the way that Cashman runs the front office. The Yankees are terrible, and there's no way around it.